Hi, welcome. I'm Tom Allison, and I will be your moderator today. In honor of Black History Month, we are chatting with the four extraordinary Black artists who are featured in the Stratford Festival's musical cabaret series, Up Close and Musical. We are delighted to have joining us today Alexis Gordon, Vanessa Sears, Robert Ball, and Marcus Nance. Welcome, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, so good to see you all. Friends, family. Um, so let's launch right into it, shall we? My first question sort of is a question that came to me as we were discussing what this should be about and what we should be doing. And what I thought was this: as performers, cabaret is sort of one of the most daunting mediums we have. It's so personal, it's so up close, it's there's no character to hide behind, and it's much more intimate in terms of what we're talking about. Now, since the racial reckoning, as a friend of mine calls it, that happened in May and beyond, and we've had time in the pandemic to be thinking and talking, it's it's come onto the table that the awareness of how people of color have gotten used to altering how they speak and how they act. In the presence of white people to make them comfortable, to keep them comfortable. And so, with that in mind, when you were asked to be part of this series, which is so intimate and personal, um, what were your impulses, thoughts, or concerns, good or bad, about sharing your stories, about sharing your voice, both literally and your viewpoint, your point of view? Alex?
Intimidating.
Alex, it's intimidating. Yeah, go ahead. How so?
Yeah. Oh gosh, I kept asking like, well, what is everyone else doing? And I kept getting told, just do you. It's fine. Like, you don't have to adhere to a specific structure. It's just you. And I was like, no, tell me what everyone else is doing. And I wanted to fit into it, but yes, like yeah, Tom and Richard were wonderful at saying like it is all your own, and you can do whatever you want with it in the best way possible. And knowing that you were also overseeing everyone else was sort of that reassurance as well, that I trust you will help guide me, and and it will fit in with the group. But that sort of absence of lack of live humans was also sort of the intimidation factor as well, knowing that I was a part of something with these humans that I couldn't see or couldn't witness or couldn't share it with.
Right.
That was a part as well.
The
The
solitary part.
Yes, the ultimate isolation in that.
For the most part, some of us kind of jump back and forth, but a lot of us are stage performers, and that's very different. One of my favorite parts of being a stage performer is that it's impermanent and that you do your performance, it's live, and then it disappears. And only the people who were there got to witness that, for better or for worse. If there's a little glitch or a little screw up, that's like part of the magic. When something's recorded, that's not part of the magic, it's just a mistake. Forgiveness because of the medium, and then it exists forever. And that was terrifying for me.
Right. Did it alter a lot of how you felt about putting it together? Was that part of what you were aware of as you planned it?
Definitely. I mean, I think it, the request came amidst the, kind of crest of the Black Lives Matter movement and the outrage and the exhaustion. And so I felt like a personal pressure of like, what do I want this to be? What story am I telling while being authentic? And, my anger, frustration, exhaustion was part of that authenticity because that was all real. And also knowing that this is going to exist um, forever, and that this is a reflection of me. And, do I want to put forward something that could be perceived as just angry and exhausted? And so, it was definitely had an impact. And Tom, I had a lot of conversations with you about what mine would entail and how to craft it. And also, I'm not a writer. That's not what I do.
Right.
And it was scary to be like, go make a show. I'm like, I don't know how to do that.
Well, that was part of the joy too. I mean, it's certainly working with all of you. For those of you who don't know, listening, I was the associate director, so I was in on helping you craft your spoken pieces, which was such a thrill and delight for me to work with each one of you. But there was that common thread throughout of I don't write, but also you're writing as you. It's such a personal voice. Robert, what were your impressions or feelings around that?
Yeah, it was a lot of what Vanessa was saying as well, where it's like this heavy weight and responsibility that you feel because of the political climate and because of what we all feel in this moment. But then there's also this layer of excitement because we haven't been working for so long. You're like, oh my God, I get to perform and do something creative, and I get a gig. But then this weight and responsibility and what is it and when am I going to make it and what should it be? And so it was very layered. It was a very layered experience.
Right.
Especially
Okay.
over the time, like I think most of us got the call around June, July, and that was the center of it. And it was, do I have time to digest this? And then we ended up filming in November, taking time with music right fun, or music copyrights fun.
Right.
So then we got the time to digest. So how our experiences then shifted as we finally got to perform. I found I had crossed out a lot of text and was like, it's different now, or oh, it's grown, or oh no, that has not changed, that's great now. But that was
And,
also an
yeah, I was going to say, and for me, I put it aside because just to guard my heart, because there's been so much heartbreak just in this industry in general, but over the last year and a half or so of things canceling and not coming through. So I was like, let me just put it aside. If it doesn't happen, at least, my hopes are not shattered.
Marcus, your thoughts?
Actually, my first reaction was of great excitement. When it comes down to it, the Stratford Festival is a huge institution. And sometimes, I think I'm speaking for many artists, sometimes it's easy to feel that you get lost in the crowd of the festival. And so the idea of having 25 minutes to stand on that iconic stage in this historic festival, and just myself and a pianist, and to be able to tell my story and show my artistry in the way I wanted to, that really excited me. And I felt that this was actually an opportunity because actually when you go virtual, it becomes international. And so people in Europe and Asia are watching this. I thought it was an incredible opportunity. So I was thrilled. When it came down to choosing what I wanted to do, the content, I'm probably one of the older presenters in this series, and I got into the business when uh, companies were starting to try to be more diverse, and those of us that were selected to be in those companies knew that we had to be in our best behavior, and we couldn't say the wrong thing. We couldn't really talk about race because we were lucky to be there, and there were lots of white people who should have been there instead, supposedly. So I think I came up with that generation of don't say the wrong thing. And with the whole Black Lives Matter uh, stuff going on right now, I feel that I have been uh, motivated and encouraged by the young people to really step more forward and to know that times have changed and that there is the ability to tell your story. And I think that the non people of color are really open to hearing those stories. So I was very encouraged to be able to tell my stories and to talk about the racism that I actually dealt with. And I think that's surprising to people because when these things happen, when someone gets shot, when somebody gets profiled, most of our friends probably never think that it's us. They think it's those other people. So it was really nice to be able to tell that story, and I felt more encouraged ever in my life now to be able to tell those stories. Thanks to people like Vanessa and Robert and Alexis.
That's fantastic. Oh, speaking of which, now that you open that up, was there, what was your impulse in terms of sharing the story? Was there trepidation in choosing your songs? What was the deciding factor? Did you feel empowered to share your personal stories as people of color? Or was it something that made you feel nervous, excited? Where was that sitting for any of you, the rest of you?
I definitely felt a lot of trepidation and a lot of that awareness of expectation and what that means, especially in a racialized body, and how that expectation is different. And I think that I actually love hearing you talk, Marcus, about how it felt like an opportunity for you. I think it was definitely hard for me to find that mindset, and I think I'm still navigating that now because, especially as someone who is like at the beginning of their career, I've only been doing this professionally for a couple of years. I feel like I don't have the confidence to be like, yes, I'm ready to show exactly who I am to the world. I'm like, I'm still figuring so much stuff out. I'm still making so many mistakes. And there's a reality that, as Black performers, oftentimes we are tokenized and hired to perform very specific types. And I remember like having the conversation about like some first ideas, like what songs would you think? And a lot of the stuff I put out, they were like, really? Oh, what about this like big black lady 11 o'clock number? And I was like, okay, that's what you want. And I enjoy that. I love performing those songs. I do connect to those songs, of course I do, but it was there is an expectation, and I think there's an expectation from different audiences of that too. And so it was difficult to navigate what I wanted to do and how I wanted to present that. And we took a stab. I'm like overall pretty happy with how it came out, but definitely like it was a learning experience and kind of a personal development experience at the same time.
Would you do it again?
No, I wouldn't. I know that I don't I like acting as someone else. I like sharing someone else's story and connecting to those parts of myself that relate and resonate. I don't want to go and it's so exposed. It's so vulnerable. I like being vulnerable with like the mask of someone else on. And I talk about that in my cabaret. So tune in.
You heard it here first, folks. Tune in. Alexis, what about you? What was your experience in planning and choosing?
Oh, I loved how much like Vanessa just opened up now. I think about the top of my Stratford career in 2015 and the people of color that approached me saying, I didn't know what carousel was, but I saw a Black female on a poster of a musical at Stratford for the first time. And so I bought a ticket because I finally saw myself. And that has always stuck with me, that as vulnerable and scary and intimidating as all of acting is, let alone a vulnerable cabaret, Vanessa might be speaking for like a bunch of people who are also scared and feel like they wear their own mask. And the beauty of you conquering that fear, Vanessa, and doing it anyway, I think is going to be that visibility that somebody needs. I've talked a lot about, and I mention it in this cabaret, in my own, that seeing Karen Robinson in a Harlem Duet at the Studio Theater in 2006 when I was a camper at Stratford was my first big moment of like, oh, I guess I can do theater, because I hadn't seen anyone who looked like me in theater before. So I had figured I didn't belong. So as scary and as stressful as the permanency of a videotaped cabaret is, and I better say the right thing. And even part of me, when the schedule was put out, I was like, February 25th, like, will the world that I was talking about be the same world? Will it resonate in the same way? Because I started writing this in June and the world looked like the pandemic was going to last a little bit longer. And then, oh God, like longer. Okay. And where are we? But I guess all we can do is speak truth in the moment, and accept that we will grow and we will learn and we will change. But again, hopefully whatever I say or sing helps someone.
Yeah, indeed. I want to come back to that idea in a second, but Robert.
Yeah, for me, in putting the show together and selecting, I always keep kind of a list of songs that I want to do and desire to do. So that was already there. But for me, it was in navigating the intersections. So being Black and gay, and what do I want to say, and do I want to say that? And then also being a recording artist, music industry, and actor, theater artist. Cabaret is kind of the merging. A cabaret, concept is the merging of that. What would be a concert or performing as somebody else? And that was a weird kind of navigation for me as well. So putting the show together was kind of brain racking and pulling at different things and dissecting and intersecting. So that was a challenging, but I think ultimately probably rewarding.
Nice. Well, the thing is, I mean, I can't wait till people see it. It's so extraordinary. But back to what you were talking about, something that you mentioned, Alexis, the idea of being seen, of leading. Are the four of you aware that younger black artists, or even not young, so young black artists, and also black people are watching or will be seeing you or have seen you or see you on a poster or see your name associated with something. People are watching. They're watching what you do, the choices you make. Are you aware that that's happening? Is that something that's helps you make your choices? Do you know what I mean? Does it help guide you in terms of that you're being looked at by those coming up after you?
Yes.
Yeah? Yes, just yes. Listen, straight is good. Straightforward is good.
I think,
Uh,
well, here's the thing. The reality is that what I don't think the rest of the world knows is that we as Black people carry each other. So one Black person represents all Black people all the time, and for better or for worse. And that's something that we carry with us. And I think that in this time of greater representation, it's also something that we are aware of.
Which is a pressure, but it's also a privilege. Like for those
Absolutely.
who take it upon our shoulders, like I truly don't think I would be where I am and have been without Karen Robinson, without the first all-black cast on a Stratford Festival stage at the Studio Theatre in 2006. Like it's scary being the first, but it's also when is the next coming? It can't be a one-off. I can't screw up because if I got to get here, I have to make it better and show how wonderful it is to work with me because I represent others. So if I've proved a good experience, then they'll keep it up. That it comes with a pressure, but again, it comes with a privilege. Where why was I the first in 2015? Why couldn't have that? Why wasn't that earlier? Where who helped set those stones that I could be here, that we could be here, that we could move forward, that we could be cast more diversely, etc.
It is a privilege, but it is also definitely intimidating. And I think that there's a very real risk that it can kill process. Because if, and of course things are changing and improving, but progress takes time. And, Robert mentioned that like one Black person represents all Black people. And that is not the actual reality, it is the perceived reality. If I go see a really, really bad play, I don't think that because there was one white actor who like dropped all their lines and like was making weird choices, I don't then be like, white people can't act. But some people say like, oh, if Vanessa screwed up in that part, this is what I'm talking about. We can't just like diverse and have colorblind or color rich casting because look, this is what happens. And that's a really unfair pressure to have to walk into a rehearsal hall with, or, a set with. And I absolutely agree, Alexis, that it is a privilege and there is power in that. But it also, it can be really, really hard to think about process and think about your artistry and your craft when there's always a pressure on product. That's the reality, is we are making a product that is going to be, on the Stratford subscription site, Stratfest at Home. There's a product, but you need to be able to have that time of freedom and safety and vulnerability to get to a product that is good. And sometimes it's difficult to navigate that.
It's interesting because I don't think about being an example on stage or in the industry for younger Black people. I think more that I'm going to show those who are doubters what we can do. So it's more, and that might not be a good thing, but it's more those of you, like what Vanessa's saying, if we mess up, because I've been there. I remember the first time I was part of a company that was trying to uh, uh, have more diversity, and my first role that I had to do, I was terrible. I really was bad in it, and I couldn't fix it. I could not fix it, and I wept at home. I wept at home by myself because I thought I am bringing down my entire community. I really thought I was because I knew partly one of the reasons why I was there. I mean, obviously, I'm good at what I do, so that's another reason why I'm there. But I knew that it was that the diversity was
yeah.
part. So there is a pressure, and it was hard for me. And now that I'm older and I've been in the business long enough, it's less that I don't feel like I'm proving anything, but I do like to be an example to people who are doubters of what it is that we can do, that we are good at this, we do belong here. But it's interesting that I think more about that than I do about being an example for the young people to see. Interesting.
It's all about perspective, though. We are all different people, and our relationship to both the world, well, both the world, art, and ourselves and each other is different and is diverse.
Yeah, like I
Um,
wonder if that kind of relates to like when you entered the industry and you were talking about, knowing that like this is the chance, like I'm one of the first ones here and like I'm entering the industry at a very, very different time where I'm looking at you who did that and said like I'm making way. So I think that's part of it. Like that's interesting. But I think that's a great mindset, Marcus. Like I'm like, I want to adopt that. Just be like, yeah, you're wrong.
Okay. I'm glad.
well, I think, though, it speaks to the idea that it can be sometimes a privilege for people of color to feel that they're worthy, to feel that they have a place, because it's this strange relationship of being welcome, but there's a limit. Or in the past has. I don't want to say it's happening now. That's opening up, and that's the discussion that's going on.
Well,
So, go ahead.
I was going to say it depends on the leader of the rooms as well. Like everyone's really excited that this Cinderella with Brandy and Whitney Houston is coming to Disney Plus. And I grew up watching that. I felt seen. I was like, whoa, look at this beautiful mix of everyone and everything. But I wonder, were they taken care of? Were they told that this is colorblind casting? What is colorblind casting? Did you just throw them in, or did you actually think through what that would be? I had a friend recently ask, are you ever able to just play a character, or are you Alexis, a Black actress, always having to play a character? And I think as a female as well, like breaking down old plays and trying to make a three-dimensional character out of a very misogynistic, sexist playwright's version of what that silly, frilly 20-year-old looks like, and trying to carve some depth into it is also a challenge sometimes. But I think it depends on the leadership of the room, how they've placed you, what they see, and what their version of, again, colorblind or color conscious casting is. Because I think there can be a team effort in it, or sometimes it can be, how do I make this one character good? It is not in my power to figure this out. That can be a big challenge.
Right. So a big part of it's the room, the nature of the room itself. Is it a room that is asking questions and that is providing not a safe space? As I've been talking to people lately, and the idea of safe, we shouldn't necessarily be safe per se as artists because it's dangerous work we're doing, but brave. That is a brave space where we're entering into it, asking the questions, and actually trying to find answers that make sense for the world we're in now.
Or
That's,
supporting space. We all
yeah,
want.
yes, that's it. That's perhaps a better term in terms of safe, but supportive, to be dangerous, in a way that is actually functional in the room.
And to figure it out together. Like, it's okay not to have the answers, but yeah. Was I the best that auditioned to get into the room, or did you know you needed 3 Black people in the room? Like, how are we actually figuring this out? How did you decide to approach this project? How do we fit in, and how does this fit in with the overall picture? I think are exciting conversations. I hope are coming out of this great pause.
Right.
Is
Great
the
pause.
conscious, the color conscious part, not the convenience or the check boxes part.
Right. Well, and lots to be seen. But when we actually end this and can get back to live performances, please, 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 what that looks like, the nature of that is. Robert, did you have something?
Oh, I was just saying, please God, getting back
You
to
actually. Well, towards please, I don't think, Lord, please give us some salvation. But speaking of the idea of back and be in the room, and this project, and also beyond this, as we head towards hopefully getting back in houses, maybe by the fall, or by the who knows, in the new year. How have you been? How are you thinking of? How do we keep our hearts safe? It's something that you were talking about earlier, Robert. How do we keep our hearts safe inside that? Have you had thoughts about that? Have you been playing with that idea yourself, so that you don't feel you can sort of be present for yourself now that people know so much, and I hope rooms will be available to people speaking up, saying, "I'm not comfortable. Can we discuss this?" And I'm sure we'll encounter many different answers and reactions. How do we keep our hearts safe in that and still move forward bravely?
I worry that everything's going to go back to the way it was. That's what I worry about. Because I think that people get, I'm not trying to be negative. This is my worry. I think we get really excited about things and everybody's speaking up. I see so many people speaking up who were part of the problem. And I'm not convinced that these people who are speaking up are genuine. I don't know if they're just into what's happening now. So I'm like, okay, good for you for saying something now. When we get going again, let's see how you are. Let's see if you're in a rehearsal room and stuff is happening and you sit silently, then I know that I'm trying to use the right words. I know that you are full of crap, you know? So the proof is in the future. And I have been in too many rehearsal rooms with nodding heads of people who let too much go by and say nothing. So there's a lot of time for people to prove to me that they're part of this. So how do I keep my heart safe? I've decided, and I know it's easy to say when I'm sitting at home not doing a lot. Well, I'm doing a lot, but not doing what I was doing.
Right.
I don't want to put myself in situations that don't make me happy. And I've learned through this pandemic that there are other things I can do. I don't have to say yes to everything that comes my way because I feel like I have to. So I think if I can, be good with my money and and be aggressive with trying to get out into the world in other ways, I can be a bit more selective, and then I won't end up in a room where I'm unhappy.
Right.
That's
It's something
actually a lot of what I was going to say too, is that I'm learning to say no. And it's so hard because in our industry, again, intersections, our industry, being a person of color in our industry, you want to say yes to work and to opportunities. And I have been guilty of undervaluing myself professionally, which then undervalues and devalues me as a human being. And that messes with my psyche and self-esteem and all of the above. And so I'm learning to say no. And I hope to, when things open up again, maintain that. And also, I've been saying to some friends in different spaces, I'm making a conscious effort to entirely come to a space with completely authentic. So meaning not code switching. I mean, if it's gay vernacular, if it's patois, if it's Black vernacular, I'm very animated, and not feeling like I have to censor myself, making a conscious effort to go into spaces that way.
I was having a really interesting conversation just the other day about how when we enter, we've kind of touched on it today, when we enter historically white institutions, there's a possibility of seeking validation in that costs a lot. When you're seeking validation from a space that actually was never built for you, it costs something. And so for me, it's a lot of that. It's like learning what opportunities you actually want to do, what you're going to say yes to, and what you're willing to walk away from, and what you should walk away from. And also the Black community. That's how I have been keeping my heart okay during this time, is coming back to the Black community and time again, and having these conversations like this, just hopping on Zoom calls and seeing a bunch of faces that look like mine, and reminding yourself like, yes, I'm not alone in this. It feels, of course, very isolated right now because of the pandemic, and and also just these are like big, complicated, complex feelings. And it's so great to come back to a Black community where you don't have to search for validation because there's already an understanding, an inherent understanding. And I think that's really, really powerful. And like I say it time and again, like Black people have gotten me through this moment in time. Like they really have. Tom included, Alexis included, Robert and Marcus included. Like I have been on calls with you and been like, hi, and I think that's important.
Yeah. Yes.
And it's a process, like Marcus said, it's process. So my big thing lately too is just that I don't need anyone's perfect activism. like I need you to be trying, and I am so open to people who want to talk about advice and next steps, and not everyone is, because that's a lot of extra work, but what excites me is people willing to learn and being open to learning and bettering themselves and companies, their projects, their everything. I don't need perfect activism. I need you to be active.
Mm. Mm.
Right. That's great. It's not about perfection. It's about being on a journey that's going somewhere. Who is it? Who is it that you would like to be, both as a person and artist, on the other side of this? I.e., coming, I guess, too dark. You see, Audra McDonald. Audra, if you're listening, you heard it here first. If you need a sister in something, or if you can't make a gig, Alexis Gordon. Now, why is that?
Oh my goodness. I'm so joking. I had to.
But it's a good reason. I mean, she's someone who's amazingly herself,
Well,
and
to be honest,
is vocal.
yeah, and she was such an inspiration to me again when I wasn't seeing people who looked like me or sang like me, who sang legit musical theater, classic musical theater. She was this icon for me, but she was she's was at the beginning of diverse casting and discovering all of that, and so I love reading and listening about her experiences. And again, like I stand on her shoulders for going through a lot of experiences and slowly getting the wheel to turn with progress in theater. So I respect that, and again, I just hope I don't literally need to be Audrey McDonald.
I understand. No, we got it.
But
But
since
what she represents as
right.
literally a voice, but also a voice of her generation, of her people, of her, people being human beings, and also people of color. Like she's out there being present without being vitriolic. It's actually firm and it's clear, and she's so stands for what she believes in all the way down the line, which is
Well, and for any awful experience that I've had to go through in the theater, I hope that I am clearing the path for someone else. That is my hope. That with every negative thing, it's a good thing because I have helped tear down a wall, break down a wall for someone else's dreams to happen.
nice.
And since you said Audra McDonald, I want to throw in Norm Lewis.
Marvelous. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Norm, if you're listening, once again.
On the other side of this, I just said earlier that when I'm on the stage, I sort of think about the example for the doubters. But I think on the other side of this, I think right now, like I'm teaching at Sheridan, and one of the things that I do want to do is have an impact on the next generation coming up, and they're they're in their educational phases right now during this awakening, so they're really attuned to it, and it's a real different world because there's this whole thing of the gender situation, and how you present yourself at an audition and what songs you can sing. Like, it is all changing. So I'm kind of thrilled. I'm learning from them in that aspect, but I also want to be an example for them of how to be good artists, and how and the biggest thing is how to love themselves, celebrate who they are and their differences, because it's really interesting that in 2021 these young kids still have some insecurities about who they are as gay, as black, as trans, and they're just learning to celebrate that, and the schools are just beginning to encourage that and encourage them to speak up and not to sit back like my generation did way in the day and try to appease. So I'm thrilled to be there as an educator, helping them to get to that next step. So that's what I want to do after this when we get back to normal.
Beautiful.
Mm.
Vanessa.
Kimberly Ramazat is my icon. She knows this. I'm obsessed with her. I will tell her all day long till the cows come home. Wayne at Soul Pepper, Mumbi at Obsidian. These are women that I'm like, they are doing it. They are doing it now. They are doing it with like a whole new level of Black excellence. Like if I could have a tenth of the power, the elegance, the grace, the hope that those women have, and have an ounce of what their essence is, I would be like, check. did it, nailed it, because those women are just incredible change makers.
Well, yes. Well, I mean, you're also 14. I mean, you have some time. You're coming into your own. Take a moment. There are amazing women who have actually had the time to really follow where they're going, and that's the path. I mean, getting to know you as I've gotten to know you, that's so much a path that you're on. I feel you on your social media, and as we talk and as we work together, I can absolutely feel you moving in a direction of being a leader in terms of what the world can look like for everyone, specifically people of color, of course, in your own world, but beyond that, I can see your eye, your um, sympathetic eye, your world eye moving in that direction. So, another 10 more minutes, maybe. You're them.
Really, I've been saying, and I haven't said it to you, Vanessa, and shame on me, but you are going to take over the world.
Wow, you heard it here first. Okay, well, another scoop.
Very kind.
Well, so with all of that, I mean, and I love the term Black excellence. It's something that I love that Kimberly uses all the time. I've known her since I was a long time. But Kimberly always talks about that idea of Black excellence, and that's so much of that happening in this room, and certainly in the workroom. Coming back to the shows, back to the cabarets, what is it you would like people who see, particularly these four cabarets? I mean, the whole series is spectacular. Everyone's so great. But as we're talking about this, what do you want people to see in terms of their impression, their what's left with them of Black excellence after watching your cabarets? What would you like to see happen and feel, have felt?
Well, for me, humanity. I think so much of our representation lacks depth and humanity. And so something I'm passionate about is showing the vulnerability and the tenderness and the intimacy of Black men. And so having now seen mine, I think that comes through, and I hope that is something that people get from it.
Anyone else? Alexis?
I'm trying to think how to articulate it. I don't know. I've been thinking about the extra effort that we are taught as Black artists that we have to put in on top of what everyone else has to prepare.
Right.
We're told that we have to work 20 times as hard where someone else is working 5 times as hard. Or just trying. We have to excel. There's this pressure or this, I don't know what's I'm relating a lot of Disney right now with the Princess and the Frog, that like
Right.
you can't just wish upon a star and have your dreams come true. You have to put hard work in. That's a big sort of archetype that I've been surrounded with and grew up with as a Black human. That it is just an excellent piece in itself, and not because I am Black,
Right.
but excellent. I don't know how. Yeah.
No, that I get it. I get it. That it's not about you. It's not good because you're Black. You happen to be Black. That's just part of the being that you are. But the talent and the work you have put into your career and yourself as an artist and person is what they are seeing. Having seen it, of course, and being part of it, what they're going to see is this beautiful version of Alexis Gordon, the human being, sharing her talent and spirit. And she happens to be Black and spectacular. I mean, there's that too. But I understand that. That's a very clear thing. See the artist, see this fabulous artist, and then realize, oh, Black excellence is a thing. That's wonderful. On top of that,
Yeah, the different bars are cast aside, and there's just, yes, I am Black, but there's also, we are excellent.
I would echo that, because one of the things, I've gotten a couple of interesting jobs end of last year, and when talking about that with some friends, they will say, "Oh, well, this is a good time for you," and I'm like, "Well, what does that mean?" "Oh, it's a good time for you because you're Black, and that's you guys are the flavor of the month now. Is what's coming my way." So So when I was asked to do this up close and musical, and I saw that there were a large number of BIPOC artists there, I was thrilled. And what I want people to leave with after they see these is not that there are a large number of BIPOC people there, but there are a large number of incredibly great artists there. There are some of the best artists in Canada there, regardless of what they look like. And I think they're going to see that because everybody here is incredible. Um, the second thing I want them to see is, as far as my storytelling goes, that you know people who deal with racism every day. It's not just what you see in the newspaper of somebody in Chicago or New York. It's happening in Stratford. It's happening in Toronto. It's happening in Canada. I want them to know that as well.
Beautiful. Vanessa.
I agree with Robert. I hope that they see the humanity and the vulnerability and the imperfection. I think part of me, wants to almost like put a disclaimer on it and be like, this product brought to you during a time of immense trauma. Like, I almost want that, but then not as an apology, as a like, and I did that during all of that. That's ongoing. That's lifelong. Like Marcus said, that's happening in Canada all the time. We're always navigating the intersectionalities of our identities. And of course, when this first started percolating back in June and July, there were very specific events happening, but that is just our lived everyday experience. So there is always a level of trauma that's like being brought into this, because that's a reality. So I think, I want people to know that it's imperfect and that there's so much going on behind the scenes. Like, even though it's a cabaret and it's an exploration of the person behind the artist, and you get a little glimpse of them, like there's so much more. There's still so much more that you don't see, that can't be put into 20 minutes. I think that it was one of the challenges for me was trying to be like, I can't condense this story. This is my story. Like, it's not this nice little neat package. I don't know how to make that like a little bite-sized snack. It's not. It's bigger than that. There's way more beyond the surface. But also that I'm very proud of it. And I think, Thom, you asked me if I would do it again, and I think I would amend my answer and say that, yes, I would do it differently and I would do it better, but I would do it again. Because it is terrifying, but I do think that it was good to face the fear and do it anyway. And I think I learned and grew a lot, and there's already a million things that I would do differently, but I hope that people see that it's not the totality of a person,
Right.
but it's a glimpse of a person. And I hope that it does make people keep asking those questions and keep digging and keep mining the relationships in their own life.
Right.
Vanessa, you hit on something, is that we did this amidst so much. Just practically as performers, we had not been performing for a while. This muscle was a rusty, child. You know what I'm saying? Dusty and rusty. But then also we were alone. We were not being social, so we were dealing with this loneliness and this isolation. We were dealing with this trauma of watching somebody murdered. So there was a lot that we did this amidst. And I mean, pats on the back for all of us, but that should be acknowledged as well.
Indeed. Yeah. Well, to work through trauma of any kind, let alone the layers that people have had this whole year. So taking something off of Vanessa for, I think, probably our last couple of question moment here. But you've all seen your episodes. In Marcus's case, for sure, we have actually seen you launch the whole thing. Bravo! It was spectacular, and the response, I have to say, because it's fact, was spectacular. I mean, it really was. People were so thrilled. I think, one, they needed something to see, but also to see you giving what you gave in that performance in terms of vocally and fantastic arrangements, and also your stories, which was my favorite thing, because I had the pleasure and privilege of sort of being, that was my world of what I was doing in the show, was talking to people with your stories. Were so beautiful and personal, and I think that's the allure of a cabaret and what people are going to really enjoy these and have been. With that in mind, what is something you would change now looking at it, and what is something that you actually really, either surprisingly or not, love about it?
It's that's so funny. Robert and I were having this conversation about this. The first time I saw mine when they sent it to me, I actually, and sounds so corny, but I actually cried. And the reason I cried was because I was watching this story of this person, and it was a, a moving story. And then I thought, oh my God, that's me. I mean, I was hearing myself from afar, and it really hit me that, oh my God, you experienced those things. So that was the first thought, and I should have left it at that. And then I started watching it more, and then I started picking myself apart.
That's the kiss of death. That's
That's sort of wrong, and that's the bad thing.
nope,
And,
nope, never a good idea.
but what would I have changed? I think I probably will say I would have changed nothing. I think it was what it is. I think that's what performers do. We normally do it live and we leave it, and that's what we do. So I would leave what it as is, and let the people enjoy it or not. That's what we do.
Right. And what was something then that you actually really loved about it?
What did I love about it?
Yeah.
I loved that I was performing with my husband on the piano,
Yes, indeed.
because that's how we met, and because he knows me, and musically and emotionally he knows how to follow me. He knows, oh God. Ooh. Yeah, I'm a lucky guy.
Well, we were pretty lucky to have both of you do that. So the luck is all around. That's the beauty of
Amen.
it. That's great, Marcus. Next, anyone?
I love your husband too.
It has to be said. Franklin, woo, gets a shout out.
Play. I had a Kevin Ramazar play. I think I'm the only one who strayed from the piano, and I felt very rebellious. And I made sure Franklin was in the house listening to everything, and I always got his feedback because he is such a mentor of mine, and I'm so grateful for him. But yeah, I was a really neat. I also cried the first time I watched mine, and I couldn't sit down. I kept like sitting and standing, and like I felt like a stage mom was like, "Okay, how's she doing? She's okay. Okay, she's okay." And I'm so grateful to you, Thom. The text portions in between the songs, I felt great about my songs. There were a few things, we had hilarious copyright drama with trying to secure our songs, everyone. So I can't wait for the next round where we all get to sing another range of songs, because some of us didn't get exactly what we wanted. But then that just took the story and the cabaret that way. And so, okay, we're just walking this path now. I felt happy to communicate how I was feeling through song, but very nervous about text. And so it was very on the spot. And I think I'm actually grateful for how that turned out. And Thom was a wonderful guide in that as well, where you're just like, just let it flow. Like, stop trying to find that sound bite that you wrote. And trust that that's enough. And where my cabaret comes from, I think that was the best advice possible. And so I was actually surprised and very happy. Surprised, I was very happy that the text in between turned out or communicated what I wanted it to communicate, because I wasn't confident about that going in. But yeah, very, very grateful that I got to have guitar, and Kevin did a bunch of tricks with it, and he switches to ukulele at one point as well. And so I'm grateful for that play and that range that I wasn't expecting, but was totally, I love being bowled over by someone else's talent and everyone else's talent in the room as well. That I felt so grateful that I was like, all these people are helping to make this the best it can be. How lucky.
Nice. Great. Robert, Vanessa?
Yeah, I want to co-sign. Just in the chats prior to filming, and then also filming with you, it was incredible. Like that support of just shooting ideas, and you saying exactly what Alexis said. Don't worry about the soundbite that you wrote. Like, just let it organically flow, and it's going to be right. That was really, really great. So thank you for that. I did also watch mine, and I cried the first time. And then the second time I watched it, and I absolutely tore myself apart to shreds. But then I left it a week, and I watched it again, and I cried a little bit. I still cringed at a couple things. I think that it's just natural for us to be a little self-critical, but ultimately I'm happy with it.
Well,
Yeah.
that's great, though. That's a great place to land in, because
Absolutely.
everyone's going to see it and they're going to love it. But we are our own worst critics.
Yeah.
Vanessa.
Yeah, amen. We are our own worst critics. I am. jumped right past the crying and pride to just like, wow, you're why? Like just really, it is so hard to watch yourself perform. Uh, like literally your voice sounds different than it does in your head. That's like a scientific fact that the way we hear ourselves is not what we sound like in real life. And when you hear that, you're like, God, it's very strange. Like Alexis mentioned, there was a lot of copyright drama, and one of the things I would definitely change was song choices. I built my show around a song that I ultimately did not get to sing, and I didn't really accept that until the day we recorded. Like up until, we had me and my fabulous accompanist Sean had our rehearsals because both of us didn't live in Stratford. We, had 2 rehearsals back to back and then recorded. Like it was exhausting. It was like not the ideal way to head into things. And we rehearsed my dream song for fun for us. But I was still like sincerely hoping we'd get a call while I was on stage and it's like, we got the rights, you can do it. And we could like make some magic happen. And that's not what happened. But ultimately I am still happy with what I got to do. I'm thrilled that I got to have a song written for me by my dear friend JJ Gerber. I'm so happy that that's going to make its debut with the Stratford Festival stage. I'm so happy that his music will get that exposure. One thing that I loved and that I wouldn't change is that every opportunity I could, I brought more Black voices into this project. I independently hired dramaturge Solo Visions, who is fantastic, and had him work with me because I was like, I don't know how to make this say what I want it to. I hired JJ. I said, write me a song. I'm going to commission you to do this because I want you in here with me. I asked for Sean to be my accompanist, and he was living in New York. And, I was like, this is going to be a problem. And they were like, let's see. And I was like, give me Sean. I love getting Black people in the room. And I'm very happy and proud that I got to facilitate that in some small way. And I'm happy that I got the opportunity. I can be a bit, I can be a lot self-critical, and I can be a bit of a Debbie Downer sometimes with circumstances that are out of my control. It's really hard to be like, we'll just roll with it. I'm like, no, that's not fair. That's not this is what I wanted. This is why do it if it can't be what I wanted it to be. But I think that ultimately, I learned so much. I am really proud that I faced the fear and did it anyways. And I think that I sincerely hope that, on 10, 20 years, I can look back at this and be like, that's cool. I'm glad that I get to know what little baby Vanessa was processing and working through and thinking. And I think that there's something really special about having this in process, imperfect little gem who's just figuring things out. I think that's an opportunity that I'm really grateful to the Stratford Festival for. I don't take that for granted.
Fantastic. That's fantastic. That's what a great way to sort of wrap this up. Thank you all for being a part of this and sharing even more of your personal insights and personal thoughts. It's such a great time to see all of you, to have all of you sharing all of that and being so candid. That's the best part of what the cabarets are, and this extends our experience. I want to leave you with something. I watched this documentary last night about Billy Tipton, who was a female-to-male transsexual who ended up having this quite moderately successful, certainly to a certain degree, career as a jazz pianist and band leader in the 40s, 50s sort of world. And in one of the discussions with one of the people being interviewed, they said their hope was that we come to a place in the world where, I'm paraphrasing this completely, where the others, we will no longer think of people as being othered and that's a bad thing, but the idea of seeing someone who might be other and saying to ourselves, there is a person with their own interpretation of happiness. And I cannot think of a more fitting thing to say to all of you that I wish you all the beauty of being seen and feeling of other people, that everyone is entitled to their own interpretation of happiness in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Thom.
Thank you, Thom.
Thank you.
Great to see all of you.
Great to see you.
Bye.